Hello, and welcome to Maximal Fire. I'm Alex.
And I'm Johnny.
And let's recap the first 6 months of Legions Imperialis. Hello again, Johnny, my good old friend. How are you?
Alex, my friend, I am good.
Yeah.
How are you getting on? You good?
Yes and no. I'm not going to go into a whole load of details, but the reason that we've had a bit of a break the last couple of months, there's been a few life events that's happened on my side. I don't really want to bring that to the podcast, but if you aren't on the Discord server, then there's some details on there that you can kind of have a look, which will probably explain the kind of recent 2-month absence since our last podcast. However, we've not been completely drunk at the wheel or anything. We have released content still on YouTube. We've done 2 new unboxing videos for both the Direwolf, and also I did a comparison of the Warlord boxes. Both seem to have gone down pretty well. Some interesting things which I discovered in those boxes that I wasn't expecting to see, and some things which were not so good finding in or not finding in my box sets.
Not finding, yeah.
That I was expecting to see. So yeah, the time is right really to kind of get back and do a podcast again. I know we keep promising the Traitor Titans ranked. That was well in the works with me getting all of that ready. However, due to things happening, I've kind of had to put that to one side because of the amount of work that it entails. So still on the cards, will be coming, promise. But today we thought it is 6 months since Legions Imperialis dropped at the start of December, I think it was, end of November, start of December. So we thought we would kind of go back over those 6 months and sort of talk about our impressions of the game. We've run a tournament, not a tournament rather, we've run a narrative event since then. There's been a few narrative events which have been run up and down the country as well. And we've also got games in, done painting. So we thought it would be a good time to kind of decompress, especially now as well that Games Workshop seems to have finally got over the vast majority of the stock issues, which they certainly had at the start.
Yeah, pretty rough start to the game, but I think we're getting there now. We're starting to get steam a little bit. People seem to be a bit more engaged. So
yeah, I mean, I took a look at Entoyment's website the other day, and pretty much everything is back in stock for Legions anyway. And that includes a lot of Titans as well. So AT players are going to be happy because you're going to be able to get your Titans again. The one thing which still is missing on, I haven't checked actually if it's available on GW's website, but is the AT starter sets.
I don't think that would have quietly released on the website, would it?
Yeah. So I think that's still down, but everything else seems to have kind of filtered back into the mainstream. But this seems to be that pattern that we see with AT. They make a load of them, they go out, they immediately go out of stock because everybody buys them up, and then they have to release other stuff as well. It's frustrating, but it's unfortunately kind of what seems to be the pattern. But try not to fear, they will be back in stock. I'm pretty certain it always seems to happen that way. So just before we kick off, a few new patrons, just want to say a thank you to. So thank you to Nate Adams, Christopher Erickson and Conrad Earl. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, guys. If you do want to support Maximal Fire, release content, release videos, also helps with the running of all of our events. If you're based in the UK or not, and you like to travel to the UK for tournaments, then you can sign up on Patreon and back us from as little as £1, and the details are in the description. So we've said this a few times, can't do it without our patrons, and it is obviously most appreciated, the ongoing support that we get from the community.
Yeah, you guys are the best, and you support 2 silly men making a podcast about tiny plastic robots.
Tiny plastic. Well, big stompy robots.
Big stompy robots.
And little tiny plastic.
Tiny plastic men. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. It's definitely appreciated. And we are, we're pushing through the content now. We're gonna really ramp up this year. I hope so. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. No more things to kind of throw us off balance for a few months would be quite good. Mm-hmm. We do have a new patron perk as well. If you are based in the UK and you do, well, to be honest, if you're based anywhere but you want to come to one of our events, then we do offer our patrons at any level 10% off of our tickets. So if you do want to come, you can sign up for £1 and you will probably save £2 by, just being a patrons. On our smaller events, our one-day events. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to offer that for Beachhead, unfortunately, which is not going to happen until next February anyway, but due to the size of the event and the fact that we have to give money to Entoyment who run it to pay off the location, we won't be able to offer it there, but for every other event that we do, you can get 10% off. So it's another reason, as well as the Battle Bling discounts that our patrons can enjoy.
Hell yeah. And you support us, of course, which is the best bit, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So it's been another couple of busy few weeks. I think we're kind of coming to the end of this sort of cycle of new releases, or rather the box sets that we've been waiting for that have been announced on Warhammer Community. And last weekend at the point of recording, they put up the pre-order for I think this is the last of the stuff from the Great Slaughter book. So it's the Stormhammers, the Dracosans, the Astartes Fast Attack box, the Dreadnought drop pods with the Palisades. And then they also have boxed up the Malkadors and the Sicarans as well from, the original starter box set. So it's good that you can finally get those somewhere else other than the starter box. But obviously that means that we are still lacking the Leman Russ. We are still lacking the Predators. They haven't got a box yet. And there's a whole swathe of Knight stuff that we're still waiting on that release, aren't we?
The unloved child of Legions Imperialis. Just a big Knight.
My thoughts on the Knights are that I think we'll probably see a bit of a stealth release with those. So when we do see the Leman Russ and all of that drop, we'll probably see some of the Knights come in as well, because with the last release that they did, which was the last major release that came out, the Dreadnought drop pods, the Land Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all kind of blurring into one.
yeah. And because I'm not collecting the Solar Auxilia stuff as well, I forget what they get released. I'm only focused on Legion related stuff. So yeah, it was the Land Raiders, the Dreadnought, the regular drop pods, all that kind of stuff. They released a whole ton of Titans as well, which I don't think they'd really been. I don't even think they'd all been announced on the Warcom article. They just appeared on the pre-order at the same time. Like there was, I think both of the War Masters came back. The Warbringer came back. I think the Warbringer was the unexpected one. So I think we'll probably see that with some of the Plastic Knight kits, which are currently unavailable, which I think might just be the Porphyrion. I think that's not been repackaged yet.
Not yet, no.
I think the rest have. Maybe not the Cerastus Knight Lancers. Have they been? There's Knights. There is Knights that need to be reboxed, as well as hopefully some of them getting a little bit of the plastic love, which would be good at some point. Give me some plastic armigers. Some plastic armigers would be nice, so I don't have to remortgage every time I want a banner.
Some small plastic ones would be good, and preferably more to a pack as well. That would be also very nice. Yeah,
but then also there is the release. Is it this weekend? I have to check the dates. Here's me. I should probably have put all of this in the show notes to remind me. But that would be far too organised. And the 18th of May. Yeah. It's next weekend, so not not this weekend. It's the weekend after. There is the new preview, and Legions Imperialis is listed on that preview. So I think we're probably going to be seeing a new book there. Hopefully we'll start seeing some of the things which are missing from the first 2 books, which would be kind of like the artillery for Space Marines, the other what are the big ass tanks called?
Is it not the Malcolm?
Oh my gosh. No, the Legion Super Heavies.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
What are we doing?
I'm throwing blank.
Kratos?
Yeah,
not Kratos.
No, not the Kratos. We've got the Kratos already.
We've got the Kratos, yeah.
The other ones, the Fellblade, and is it the Fellblade?
Oh yeah, like Falchion, Fellblade.
Yeah.
Oh god.
All of them. So
yeah, all of them.
Fingers crossed we'll see a few of those. It'd be nice for Space Marines to have some artillery as well. To kind of try and do something about the hordes of Medusas and Basilisks that we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, goddamn, it's rough.
So yeah, we might do a thing with that. We haven't quite decided yet, but looking forward to seeing what they bring there. Hopefully, as well, we'll as well as some new bits. We might maybe. I'm personally hoping for some new ways of playing the game. I think because we'll talk about this a little bit more kind of as we go into this sort of episode. But some alternative game modes to what is currently being presented in the main rulebook, I think would be quite welcome at this particular point in time. But yeah, so 6 months in, like I say, bit of a kind of sketchy release at best. From what I've kind of been hearing from all of the stores and from people in and around the industry, pre-order is doing great, and generally stuff sells out on pre-order. Unsurprisingly, things like cards are selling out quickly. But then the restocking isn't going off the shelves as much as it is. And I think that this is possibly because of I think the launch has not helped things here. And I think, a lot of people who were interested in it were like, well, you know what, it's late already. I can't get hold of anything. I think even you struggled a little bit for a time, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get hold of like Space Marine infantry and stuff.
And I will tell you, it absolutely killed my drive to do LI. Because it was like, I knew it was going to be expensive to get hold of any infantry anyway, and then like having to actually fight to spend that money to paint some 6mm, 7mm infantry was very frustrating. So the slow start did not. I don't think it helped with player interest. There was so much hype when it was originally going to be released. People were all over Instagram doing stuff, and then I think after those delays and then the unsteady start and the seeming still knock-on effects of those delays into the current releases, I think has just really kind of shot the game in the foot before the race has even begun. And
the proximity to Old Worlds as well, I think, was a really rough decision to release the game as close to Old Worlds as it was, because you are fighting with you are after the exact same group of
player base
people, who have the nostalgia from playing fantasy and playing Epic Armageddon back in the day, early 2000s and stuff. So when what's more easy to get hold of? Well, arguably Old Worlds is easier to get hold of at the moment, and there's plenty of people out there who have got Warhammer armies that you can literally just reuse, because I think there's been a bit of a rebasening from what I understand, like some changes in base size. But
I don't think it's been that dramatic though.
No. So that obviously was a bit of a mess.
I wouldn't fault anyone for picking Old World. They're two very kind of exciting systems. So that's just
I'd like to play Old World
timing,
but I think I want to wait until I'm well sorted with my LI stuff. I can't focus on more than one thing at a time. I'd like to have, I need to get to a point where all of my backlog is cleared for LI, so that I can, every time a new release comes along, I'm buying one box set and I'm painting up one box set or something.
not adding to the pile.
Rather than at the moment I'm so many models that I'm still painting up or is still just in their yellow undercoat. But also, like, because they're being very specific, aren't they, with Old Worlds as to the area and also the races which are available. For me, the only nostalgia I've got is I want to go back and do the army, which I never got to do back in the day, which was Chaos Undivided. And the main reason I didn't get to do it was I bought it all, but then I was working for Games Workshop at the time, and the store also needed an army doing for Chaos and wanted it painted in exactly the same colour scheme that I was painting mine. And so I ended up painting the store's army and then was completely burnt out with painting that colour scheme by the time I actually got around to doing my own. So, I when they do a Chaos box set, I think that might turn my head a little bit more, I think.
Dude, you should use some of the new AOS Chaos stuff. It is awesome.
Yeah.
I've got it for AOS and I've been so close to scraping off the bases for the old world.
Yeah, they are very nice. I think that one of the draws for me, though, at the moment is because they're using quite a lot of older models. Like, the value for money that you are getting out of some of those old world boxes is actually pretty significant. Like, what you get out of a battle force is considerably better than what you get from Age of Sigmar. However, obviously the quality is night and day. They're completely, they look like 15, 20-year-old models compared to what you can get on Age of Sigmar. So the expensive way would be to do exactly what you are saying, and probably the nicest way would be to do what you're saying. But then...
say what you want about Age of Sigmar, but the models just almost always hit it out of the park. They're always they've got such a good design team. Yeah,
absolutely. So that wasn't helpful at all anyway. And it was really interesting to see Games Workshop put out a couple of events, didn't they? They did the 2-dayer, which was that last weekend or the weekend before? My friend Gordon came second in that, which is quite nice to see. One of the guys I know from up South Shields way. And that was 3,000 points, I believe.
Damn.
And then they had 1,500 points. I've got a feeling that they adjusted one of the points to actually reduce it. I think largely due to the fact that there was no stock. They advertised it at 3K.
Was it the 3K one that got reduced to 2,500, right?
I think it might have been, yeah.
The absolute ghoul of... I remember, I think we talked about it on the pod when they announced it. And this was like mid-LI drought. Like, there was nothing releasing for it. And the absolute ghoul of them to advertise a 3,000 point LI tournament was very funny.
And that's it, right? It was a complete drought. There wasn't really anything released until the start of April, I think it was. So I think after that sort of January release, I don't think there was anything for a couple of months, or there was a big gap, which again, I think really kind of killed people's enthusiasm for it. What am I hoping for now, though? I guess I'm hoping that now that they seem to have sorted it out, people may kind of return to it as they see more games played, and the stock is more readily available. I think that's probably what they're hoping as well. I've enjoyed my games of Legions Imperialis so far. It doesn't hold the same place in my heart as Adeptus Titanicus does. I don't think it ever will, to be honest. I still think that AT is the best game, or certainly one of the best games that GW have ever made. And if you are getting frustrated with Legions Imperialis for whatever reason, then my advice would be take the Titans that you've probably got and start playing AT, and you won't be disappointed by continuing your epic scale adventure in that game instead.
And you have a shit ton of basing materials left over.
What is it we called it back in the day? It's like, they've just announced the premium basic kit. And it is that, because I've already started using them on my Krytos and stuff, haven't I?
I've started using the Ruin packs as well for my Warhounds.
But that was a good thing as well. Like, people were really worried because, again, like, the Ruins went out of stock really quickly. And when they were released... they were released with the game, and there was a big drought on those. There wasn't as much stock available as people hoped for. They were being bought up. They were being scalped. And then on the website, there was that kind of the thing which sort of sends a shiver down everybody's spine when they kind of see something on the official GW website, which is when it says no longer available.
Can I make a community announcement about this, right? Like, their stock system has never properly worked. Like, if you see something that says out of print on the GW website, I promise you there is a 90% chance that it's actually just out of stock. Like, all the time there are posts being like, oh, this one's showing as temporarily available, not available online. Are they discontinuing it? And it's like, oh, come on, guys, this is getting
this
so
is
old.
It, right? It was the same with the Ruins, right? No longer available. You think it's out of print, but then all of a sudden it just appeared, and now it's available in most local friendly gaming stores if you want to pick them up.
Don't believe the stock status until it literally disappears from the website, because they will always surprise you.
Yeah, and it's the same with like the cards. I think people were buying up all of the cards, and then some more of the cards were released.
That's fair though, because if you look at games like Necromunda, the secondary market on card pack prices is insane. Because people may correct me here, but I believe most of their card runs have been one-time events, and so that I remember in one of the group chats we have I mean, for
Necromunda, I think for Necromunda
money.
that's certainly the case, but then with Necromunda the game system changes so often. You very quickly will get another, I don't know, Delac pack, but it will be for the next game system, so they don't invest the time they've got so many card packs and so many different types of packs that they kind of almost release them as specials rather than something like the Astartes detachment cards, for instance, which are kind of like a staple for Legions Imperialis. You need them. Well, you don't need them, but like they are. Yeah, it's a core product. I imagine that they will continue to release those ever so now and again. But we took the plunge anyway, didn't we? We saw that we took a honestly, when we kind of were thinking about this at the start of the year, we didn't know how to run an event for this game in the state that it currently was, but we committed to doing something, as soon as we could. We wanted to get an event out there to get people playing games. We did our Learn to Play thing in January, which was really good. And then luckily Games Workshop said, we're going to do a one-day event. And we were like, aha, this is something that we should probably keep our ear to the ground on.
Yeah.
And we took some leaves out of their book with the game size. They chose 1,500 points, and I believe they made them 4x4s on that rather than a 5x4. So we thought, we'll pinch that. That's what we'll do for our one-day event, our first one. And we'll see how it goes. Because certainly the experience that I've had is that the games, until you're very familiar with Legions Imperialis, the games are long. Like, the first two turns in particular are probably 70% of the game, I would say.
I think it has a very similar kind of play progression to Titanicus, where at the beginning it's just terminals and cards everywhere, and you're doing complex equations, and then towards the end everything's just blowing up and resolving itself pretty quickly.
But I think I'm hands-on in the air, and I will admit that I've not yet played a 3,000 point game because I've been building my force up, waiting for the stock to be available. I've got my first 3,000 point game tomorrow, which is the recommended game size. But what I was sort of seeing a lot was that at these smaller point sizes, you were seeing a lot of small formations, and the number of the number of detachments in these formations were what was kind of slowing the game down. You had 10, 11 activations each side. And, it was all lighter stuff. You didn't have any big titans, or you probably had a few planes, but there wasn't a whole heap of everything. So the first turns were taking so long because you had so many formations to work through, and it's you go, I go, so there's that backwards and forwards element, which I really like, but it did slow everything down. Having not played a 3K game yet, I'm hoping that 3K plays no different to a 1500, but kind of feels like more happens in one go. And hopefully I'll be able to report on that the next time that we sit down at a table. But we decided 1500 points, 4x4 tables, and you put together your first ever Maximal Fire branded narrative event. In fact, it was the first ever Maximal Fire narrative event. Your first time sort of taking the lead as well, and we did the Corsair Gambit.
Yeah, hell yeah, we did it. This was an event, wasn't it? That was a new experience. I got to write and run with the help of yourself and Matt a narrative event for LI. It's called the Corsair Gambit, and it's based in our Nabid Palais system that Ed Ralph wrote for us and won the writing competition. Which year was it? Last year?
Last summer.
Last summer, it was last summer. Yeah. So we took a bit of that pre-existing community lore and made a cool event out of it. And yeah, I think it went pretty well, pretty damn good. I was kind of bricking it at the beginning of the event, but everything came from the printers really nicely. All the cards arrived, which I was the most worried about, to be honest. I had like a panic moment, like midnight before, thinking that I'd only ordered like a third of the copies of cards and stuff like that. But no, everything arrived, thank God.
But this was one of the things that we really wanted to try, wasn't it? This, in a narrative event that we were running, because we've been to narrative events before, and more often than not, they're called narrative events, but what they really mean is it's a non-competitive, gaming weekend. The narrative elements are often quite loose. It might just be like, this table plays this certain way. There's a slightly different effect on that table, and then at the end of it, you sort of go, well, 6 wins to Loyalist, 5 wins to Traitor. Loyalist win, congratulations. And I've not been to any or many really that there's been a narrative to it. So we wanted to try and create that a little bit, and also create handouts and cool things which would be engaging for our players to use and enjoy, and also take home afterwards and play later. So this was where your event pack came into play.
Yeah, that was kind of the idea for it. Is something that it's all shiny and nice to actually have at the event, but actually I wanted it to be able to be used afterwards as well. So each event pack had like I don't know whether the camera's picking this up, but we got a
just stick it near your face and we'll definitely get it.
I have no like visual viewfinder. There we go, look at that. So we had maps and semi-custom scenarios. The scenarios I kind of built off of the pre-existing ones and added some effects. So we had like battlefield features, which were changing things up a bit depending on where our players were fighting over. There was our strategic anomalies. So these were in envelopes, which I actually handily brought down an envelope here, marked with the round that they were meant to be, the game that they were meant to be opened in. And these are opened on round 3 unless directed otherwise. And a couple of cool features, like game effects that you'd get from them. So I think in our third game, my favorite one I saw resolve was the Prowling Titan strategic anomaly, which basically
there was a ruse that was enacted for this particular one. So we told everybody, like, because we've done quite a lot of those sort of Titan Walk things in the past. We did Legio Audax at Beachhead. We've done like a Warmaster Walk in the past, and we said, everybody we're going to do a Warhound Walk, see how many Warhounds that we can
everybody
get.
bring your warhounds, please.
Bring
it's
your
just
warhounds
for this
with
photo
you.
opportunity.
So people brought warhounds, and then was like, "When's the warhound walk?" And we were like,
Later.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
that's definitely a thing.
Just stick them on a table somewhere at lunchtime, and so the ruse is falling apart. But there was some people really like that, and they basically just got to add a warhound to their list on round 3 of that final game, and both players doing that was pretty fun. Yeah, I think it added some cool in-game moments, having a kind of fresh warhound Titan arriving late.
But there was it was to try and make it sort of almost feel like one of those legacy games, wasn't it? Like, you get to in the end, because of the time that it was taking, people still, I think a lot of people still not overly familiar with the game. So it was we brought it to on turn 2. You open the
absolutely
the envelopes, and people got to sort of see what would happen. It's like, they'd thrown a load of stuff on the center objective, and then they open the card, and it's like, what was that one? Basically, it's like, oh yes, you start fighting yourself.
Yeah. So in the second game, you were fighting over a planet that had been kind of snuck to by the traitors, and they are opening warp rifts everywhere. So we had a warp rift open up in the middle of the battlefield, and I wrote some hopefully not too confusing rules about models fighting against a set CAF, which basically is the model's own CAF, and it was to kind of simulate people fighting their squad mates as they all kind of turned into chaos spawns and stuff like that, which was very fun. And obviously for that mission I was a bastard, and I made the central objective right at the center of the board where the warp portal was worth the most. So it was just a big load of stuff there. Some games it literally affected nothing. Other games there were some sad or happy faces depending on which side of the table you're on and who was losing multiple infantry platoons of models from them attacking themselves. But, I mean, the whole idea for this event was just to be a fun narrative thing. I didn't want to or underbalance it too much. But it was nice to have these little effects that you wouldn't have in a match play game, but for a bit of fun, a bit of storytelling, which I guess was the the goal of the event, to tell a story.
The inner DM within you from your Dungeons and Dragons days.
Yeah, boy,
setting up a story, and between each game as well, depending on who won or who lost, the one faction would gain an advantage over another. So I think it was in the last game the traitors won the game before, so they could look at their strategic anomaly at the start of the game, so they knew what was coming.
Yeah.
There was another one which was a draw, so they both got the perk.
The perk, yeah.
And it just kind of gave a little bit of a bonus if you won the previous game. And obviously you nicely summed it up at the end with what happened. And do you want to reveal the ultimate state of Nabed Pele?
So at the moment, the traitors have wrested control of the system. The loyalists did get a win, overall win. So we counted all the wins and losses per round. So traitors, event 2, you will be getting in your first game the traitor victory bonus, because once it's carry on from this event. Hopefully that'll be a fun one. We've definitely got some cool new ideas for it. I don't know whether I'm quite ready yet to go back and start writing a full pack again, but we're getting close now. I'm starting to feel the buzz again. But yeah, it was a really good time, and I hope people enjoyed themselves. I guess the idea for these, right, is that you can start, if you come to our events, or specifically these narrative events, you can start collecting the cards, the strategic anomalies, and even the books as well. And then use them as they've all got the same backs, so you can use them in your own games as cool, fun mix-up effects. And as you come to more and more events, you start building up your own little deck of cards. I'll keep using the same card back and card size each event. Just some fun ways to play LI, while I guess at the time as well, I was thinking, we're a bit starved of content, so how can we kind of make things a bit more exciting and interesting? So
And this will, I think the plan at the moment as well is that we're going to do a trilogy of these events. So that was the first one. Like I say, we're going to be holding a second one, which is going to sort of pick up where we left off. We've got a date penciled in at the moment for August the 17th.
Yep.
So do keep an eye out on our Facebook, on Discord, on Patreon, for details of when those tickets go up. And maybe keep that day free if that's something that you would like to do. If you are one of our patrons, you will get a week's worth of notification in advance of everybody else. So another reason there to follow us on Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, really excited. I think what the idea ultimately is when we are done with these 3 events, we're going to try and bundle it all up into a pack, like one pack of missions 1 to 9, throw in all of the rules which we've kind of which we don't put in the event pack, because obviously you don't want to put like the effects, the win-lose effects in the event pack. You want to just tell people on the day, so we'll bundle all of that up in there as well as the overall narrative, and then that will go on Patreon as well.
A dungeon master's guide or something for the event organizers, the bits of lore and bits and bobs like that we put into it. Yeah.
So obviously, it was 3 games. I think generally, feedback was good from people. The only mixed feedback that I got from people had nothing to do with how we ran it, but it all came down to kind of the state of Legions at that particular point. And something I wanted to kind of just sort of bring up was the general feedback we were hearing, and this is something I kind of feel a little bit myself, and other people have sort of mentioned, is that it's the objective gameplay at the moment, which is one of the things which isn't working quite so well for Legions Imperialis at the moment. It seems to be a game of sticking as many infantry models on an objective and hoping that they stay there. And if they do stay there, getting rid of them is really hard. And it's just bum rush everything forward, take the objectives, and like the tactics element of it is less involved right now. I can see where a lot of people were coming with this, and it might be to do with the models which are currently available. But I do think that there is some elements of the victory point scoring which could be better at the moment. And we've kind of toyed with maybe no round 1 scoring, I think, is the idea that we've been kind of thinking about, because it seems to be that like if you start with a turn 1 lead, it's very hard to catch up later on in the game, even if it's kind of a fairly balanced game. If you just edge ahead for whatever reason in the first turn, there's no way to recover later on in the game.
And most other games don't as well. Most other games don't have first turn scoring, so it's an interesting decision that's in there. And like you said, it definitely feels like it does skew to the person that kind of, I guess gets first turn really, and is able to push and shunt their infantry.
Those legions which have an inherent advantage as well. So, you're infiltrating Alpha Legions, Raven Guards, those kind of things, which can start basically halfway up the board anyway. They have quite a big advantage when it comes to taking objectives. You can score those contested objectives really early, especially those missions with a central objective, which you kind of got to rush and get. You might well be on the objective already on deployment, essentially. So it becomes even harder to get those people off of there. And although there's obviously ways of doing it, like I do feel like there needs to be some tweaking to the scoring mechanic at the moment. What I'm holding on to at the moment is thinking back to when Adeptus Titanicus was released. The game we play now in Adeptus Titanicus is
not the same game.
No, it's not the same game at all.
No.
Although Match Play introduced the asynchronous missions again, they were significantly changed and they worked a lot better. So I'm hoping that with future expansions, future releases, we get different game modes, maybe different missions. I'd like to see some asynchronous objectives in Legions, because obviously they've not done that. But AT was all about asynchronous at the start, and then Legions is just static. exactly the same. But I'm still holding on to a little bit of a hope that new game modes will become available, Open Engine War equivalent card packs or something like that, which will offer new ways of playing the game, which might just sort of sort those few little quirks out and make it a little bit more tactical.
I don't know if the root of the issue is deeper. Is it mainly kind of the scoring systems and the objective play, or I feel like there's a kind of like a core imbalance with the feel of the game at the moment as well. I feel like a lot of units don't act as you would expect them to.
Are you talking about kind of like man with axe, like being significantly better than an Astartes?
Like Terminator, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like shit like that. Like there's so many I remember one of the games we played, there's so many moments where you're just like, oh, this is gonna be badass. My Terminators are storming that unit with my HQ. There's just a ton of infantry of bolters there. They're not completely outmatched, and it was just like the most like boring sequence of combat where basically it was just kind of like you were saying, just win by numbers. I feel like there is the rule of winning at the moment is just take as much as you can to kind of just block objectives with, because stuff like Titans and bits and bobs, like heavier units don't feel heavy in a lot of cases, and they feel quite weak and quite destructible.
I know, certainly speaking to some of my friends who play Solar Auxilia, like the feedback from them has been that like Bane Blades just don't feel like a Bane Blade in the game. They don't do as much as you would kind of hope that they would do. But I mean, you can't kind of, you have to have, the game has to be played at a high enough level that it's scalable to the amount of units that you're using. I mean, the first time that I was like, one dice for both of my Spons and las cannons, like that's only 3 dice across my 3 predators, and it's like, yeah, with 3 predators, yeah, it is probably a bit rubbish, or 2 Sicarans, which you get in the box, is going to be a bit rubbish. But you need to, when you then got 6 Sicarans, it's a significantly bigger dice pool, and it starts kind of making a bit more sense at those kind of bigger unit sizes, whereas the small unit sizes are very meh. The one thing that I've not yet been able to do, because I've just been trying to get hold of the models to paint up to get to this point, is my Assault Marines. I've only had 4 bases of Assault Marines for ages, which is the minimum that you need for an Assault Marine detachment. And they have just felt like a sad fart in church, like the few times when I've used them.
The reward for spending like 4 hours just reading the 20 pages of rules dedicated to independent units and Assault Marines, for them literally to be marginally better than tactical Marines in close combat.
And not necessarily much better than like Solar Auxilia because of the numbers advantage that the Solar Aux can have against you. But now that I've got enough to make a full detachment of 8, I want to see what difference like a full detachment of 8 makes over the kind of quite underwhelming detachment of 4. I anticipate quite significant differences between those. And yeah, it's little things, isn't it? It's like the close assault factor is something which hails back to Space Marine rather than something which was used more latterly in Epic Armageddon, and like it can be very, very random. It all comes down to the dice roll. I remember I taught Johnny from Battle Bling and John from Battle Bling the night before the Corsair Gambit, and John took World Eaters and Johnny took Blood Angels, 2 close quarters units, and basically threw them at one another. And
it's the funniest fucking game I've ever seen. It was such a weird, crazy game.
But that ultimately came down to the fact you had the the best, one of the best close combat loyalists forces versus the best close combat traitor head to head. But then when they did get into combat with one another, it just became so apparent that World Eaters are so significantly better in close combat because of the ability to pick up one of those dice and re-roll it again. Mm-hmm. Because all of that, at that point, your average dice roll of 7, can be potentially a lot higher than what you would get just rolling 2 dice. And Johnny was also rolling terribly, under average in most of his dice rolls. And the close combat did feel, I guess, for him really underwhelming, and he was quite deflated by it because, here are the Blood Angels, masters of savage close combat, and they just couldn't do anything against World Eaters. And I think this is evident by, there are some legions which are just inherently better at what they do than everybody else. And there was an event that one of our friends, Dougie, ran in Swansea, and Oliver from the channel, he went over to that as well. And he said that the amount of traitor players who'd taken World Eaters was a big percentage of the numbers of traitors who were playing. And I think that is just because they have got a significantly impressive ability. Things like Raven Guard, like I said earlier on, very, very, very good. Alpha Legion, very, very good. And then you have the kind of sort of more middling ones, like I really want to love White Scars, but their ability +1 to Jink may become more apparent when you've kind of got the Sky Hunters and the airborne assault lists and that kind of stuff. But you're only talking an extra +1, and generally speaking, on your flyers, most of the time your armor save is going to be better than that anyway. So you're going to be using your armor save rather than your Jinx save. So it's only really on the cavalry units like Outriders and Scimitars where you're getting that bonus, but then that only makes it a 5+. So it just means they've got whatever they're doing, they're always getting a 5-up save.
It's kind of penalising you for not going full tilt into that. Obviously, the White Scars thing is the biker mice from Mars vibe, right? But some people might not want to do that. It's nice for people to have options if they want to play like a infantry focused or not just entirely fucking bikes, maybe. So
yeah. But what's interesting as well is seeing people's formation choices. And certainly for Astartes, where you have all of this available to you, you don't need to. What am I trying to say? You can take any number of different legion rules in your Astartes force as you have formations. So if you have 5 formations, you can have 5 legions, and there's none of that 30% requirement. Which you would be forced to have if you took Solar Auxilia, for instance, or you were to take a Titan. And what this means is that what we're certainly seeing over here is that you have these cookie cutter formations where, I've been guilty of doing it as well. I looked at it and I was like, right, well, okay, for 150 points in my 3,000 point list, I can take 1 minimum detachment of Space Wolves, and I can just prevent anybody from outflanking or infiltrating within 16 inches of me and 8 inches for the outflank.
I will never
absolutely going to do that. Yeah, well, I'm absolutely going to do that, because for 150 points with no negative, I will sacrifice 150 points from my list to have 2 more blobs of infantry which can still hold objectives, but also gain that ability into my force. And
hurts my soul. Alex. It really hurts my soul.
I'm sorry, but
I get it, but it hurts my soul.
The game almost encourages you to do this at the moment. And
I think one of the very big things in the book is this is a game that's meant to have mixed legions, which is cool. But you also then end up with this if the rules are so bloody skewed. No one's going to be taking White Scars for their Legion ability. You know what I mean?
No.
But people are going to be taking World Eaters and space wolves and fucking, you know.
Well, my what I'm thinking at the moment is that, you know, my list is going to be predominantly Imperial Fists, because they've got a pretty decent, you know, that first fire ability to gain accurate on a lot of stuff. Is really good, especially with things like missile launchers. And then I'm going to take a Sky Hunter Phalanx with as White Scars, or I'll take a Airborne Assault as White Scars, and then I will take a you know, my demi company of Space Wolves, and you just end up with kind of like these bits and bobs here and there, rather than being incentivized to have, you know, a force which is predominantly one legion. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like, you know, Solar Auxilia can't do this. You know, they can, but they have to then get Astartes in, and then the Astartes are 30% of their force. You know, I feel like if you're going to take more than one legion ability, then you should have, that should be 30% of your force over everything else, because, you know, if you're a traitor player, you know, you're going to be Sons of Horus. Well, you know, what you probably want to, you know, your jetbikes and all of that kind of stuff. You might want a Sons of Horus because you get that reroll on ones when within 6 inches, and of course they're going to be super close. You know, you're going to want whatever is going to be assaulting. I'll take those as World Eaters then, because they're just significantly better at close assault. I'm going to take Emperor's Children because I want the ability to steal the objective once a turn, or at least re-roll my dice once a turn. And, you know, why not? I'll throw in some Death Guard as well to make that whole area of the board like a piece of dangerous terrain. And it just kind of, when it gets to that point, it loses something for me. I like the idea of having additional formations of allied legions, but to me, you know, it should be, the big block should be Imperial Fists.
Yeah.
Or it should be your chosen legio supported by other legions as well. And like I say, the fact that it's encouraged to do that kind of makes it feel a bit odd.
Minimum unit cherry picking as opposed to like a
let's
narrative.
Be honest, right? The game has got so many rules anyway.
Yeah.
And I think it's like 20 pages of special rules. So you've got all of that to remember, as well as then, well, that particular formation over there, they do this, and this particular formation over here, they do this, and these ones back here, they do this, and those ones over there do something completely different. And it's just adding in more complexity, which again just slows the game down more. I mean, certainly something which some feedback I got from Corsair is like, let's just make it 4. If you're doing a 1500 point game or something, just make it 4 turns rather than 5. You know, try and claw back some time there, because the game's going to be long enough as it is at 4 turns.
I mean, it's not like most people were making, you know, 4 turns anyway. But
I mean, there's an element of unfamiliarity playing into things there, isn't there?
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, I may be alone with that. I'm really interested to hear in your comments, and please be kind. Leave some comments down below. I could be completely missing the point, but you know, it just, to me, I would like to see some incentive to you know, not basically be min-maxing a force ultimately.
I think if there wasn't a clear like power difference between the different legions, I think it would be fine in the current state of the rules if each legion had its own like good ability. Obviously you're never going to get it perfectly balanced, right? But like close enough, just like really spend time working out like how this works in the overall state of the game, and you know, it will require some playing to figure that out. But this current system could work and work brilliantly for, you know, for some evenly balanced stuff, but at the moment, you know, it's just not going to be fun when it's the same legions you're seeing on the board. You know, I don't care if you take stuff that's cool for fun, or even if it's, you know, just supplementing your list in a way and making it stronger in a way, but it's going to kind of suck if it's just, Space Wolves and, Raven Guard or whatever. Every opponent, you go up against. Because, I don't know. It's not Pokemon. We shouldn't be trying to capture all the legions to get some bonuses,
And you shouldn't also be making your team of Pokemon knowing that, I need a grass type to counter these. So, White Scars, I choose you. I know they'd be the flying type, wouldn't they? But,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Don't know. Like, honestly, on my bingo list for things mentioned in the podcast today, Pokemon was not on it. So we've done
my son's big into Pokemon at the moment. So I'm now thinking about a topic of conversation where we go, what type of Pokemon would each Legion be?
Oh no!
So I think you definitely
have some dark depths of YouTube content right there. That is like the AI generated stuff aimed at kids to just like click and be like, oh.
World Eaters fighting type, White Scars flying type, Salamanders and maybe Word Bearers fire type.
Yeah. See, now you got me hooked. See, I'm no better than a 8-year-old with an iPad at a dinner table.
Ignore the topic of conversation we just had for the last 15 minutes. What I really want to know in the comments is what Pokemon type each Legion would be. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's the content that we want to see.
And if we get enough responses, maybe we'll do a Legions ranked. But
do a Legions ranked, but not by how good we think their rules are. No. It'll be by the Pokemon type that they are.
And then how good those Pokemon types are. We'll make it really complicated. But it might kick up, the view time to like 3 hours or whatever. So
maybe.
So.
Oh God.
God. You can tell it's like almost 10:30 on a Tuesday night, can't you?
Yeah. Okay, right. But yeah, so that was kind of like our initial takeaway from the game. But just before we kind of round up this sort of, I guess, summary over the past 6 months that we've been kind of looking at, I think that the one thing which has sort of stuck out for me a little bit has been that certain elements feel to me like they've been rushed. So there's just a few things out there which feel like the quality control has maybe slipped just a little bit with Legions, and I'm hoping that this is just purely because innocent oversight rather than get it out, get it quick, get it done kind of attitude. But
what
like
was that Night Lords one? Was it the famous one? It's like mid-sentence, it just cuts off and it just says like Night Lords or something.
It's Heavy Bolters, the Legio 7, isn't it? The Legio 8 on the main book. Yeah, because it runs off from the Imperial Fists.
Yeah, here we go.
Imperial Fists on 1, and then it just says Heavy Bolters, the 8th Legion, was a force that shaped cruelty and fear into a weapon.
Jesus
so that's a cognomen that I've not heard the Night Lords being called before, but... yeah, the Night Lords, aka the Heavy Bolters.
And if you look at the page previous, you can see where it cut off.
Yeah.
So just lazy.
So there's one straight off the bat. Then you kind of look at the detachment cards, and straight away there's issues with what's printed on the cards versus what's printed in the books. I think the Pioneer Company card has got like misleading information on it. There's things like, I think it's the Sentinels detachment side. No, it's the scale is wrong on those cards. We had the Astartes Land Raiders the other week. There was like half a page telling me to do something with the instructions which didn't exist. So it's like, put this piece in here. And I spent like 10 minutes going, that piece doesn't exist. That piece exists on the Spartan because I put those together last week. But
it's not like gaslighting yourself into thinking that maybe you haven't checked the same sprue like 20 times.
Like, what have I missed? What have I clipped off and it's just rolled under the sofa? So yeah, and then the numbers kind of then went a little bit out of sync. I was like, okay. And then we did the unboxing of the Direwolf, and there was Terminal Gate with kind of like why have you only sent me one terminal for 2 Direwolf Titans? Credit to Games Workshop. They've come back to me, and I think they've come back to everybody else who has bought a set of terminals, bought a set of Direwolves and found only one AT terminal in, and they have said, yeah, it's a problem. There should be 2. We're going to send you another one. So if you haven't, reach out to Games Workshop and you should be able to get them. But that was a disappointment for me from the unboxing, because I was quite excited about the Direwolf, because again, not new Titan for AT, but Titan for AT.
Reimagined in plastic.
A much better design in plastic as well than it was in resin. And, for £5 more, you get 2. So great. So it was disappointing to kind of open that up and find, such an obvious oversight. And then there was little things like, the conversion beamer card on the was it on the Warhound or was it on the Direwolf? On one of them, didn't have an asterisk where it needed the asterisk to determine kind of the long range, short range weapon strengths. So it's like there's been just a few of those things in a relatively short period of time, which have been quite big. Well, they're all little, really. Maybe not the terminal. They're little things, but they kind of add up, and they just sort of make you think, "What is going on?"
Come on, Alex. They are a small, independent game company.
Independent game.
They can't
company.
afford editors or people to triple check the books that they're going to mass produce and hopefully not recall them.
No.
If
or delay them for 6 months.
Like completely like stomping on a release. I hope it hasn't sounded too much like we've been nagging about LI this episode. I don't think it has, but it's because it's not. I'm not going to say it's replaced AT, because it hasn't replaced AT. They're still 2 very distinct things until GW says otherwise. But it's definitely taken focus away from AT. So we're holding it to kind of a very high. You've taken our thing, right, that we love AT, and now we want to see the good rules and the really cool stuff that's come out of arguably both our favorite games. We want to see that reflected in LI. And it's just it's not there at the moment. But like you said earlier, early AT was definitely our first box of AT. What was it? Warlord versus Warlord with 2
volcano cannons.
2 volcano cannons, and then you had 2 just normal knights. Was it 4 just normal knights?
I think it was 4 knights.
I think. But like not the lancers, like the baby
the Questoris.
Questoris, yeah. And yeah, man, let me tell you now, that is a bad game to introduce yourself to a game, right? So it's not like and
a long game of AT as well.
Yeah, it's not like they haven't rebounded from that by any means. So holding that same faith, because we want it to succeed. We really want it to succeed, because at its face value, it's Legions is an awesome concept, and being able to just field. I mean, oh man. So going back to the Corsair Gambit, like being able to just see in front of you these just like legions upon legions of miniatures, very miniatures, was really cool. We've got so many cool boards set up, and we had everyone's really like awesomely, lovingly created armies on the tables. It was awesome to see. I just really wish that I got this much excitement out of the rules as well.
Yeah, and I think when you think that Maximal Fire was ultimately formed to be exclusively Adeptus Titanicus based, and we've gone through the last 3 years being able to make content on, really threadbare amount of releases.
GW's least loved child.
Completely, undeservedly so.
Yeah.
But we've been able to kind of. And the community has thrived really with such a few amount of releases, to be honest. But we got excited about Legions Imperialis. It entirely adjacent to what we already had, right in our wheelhouse. Bit of nostalgia thrown in as well. Loads of releases to talk about, and unfortunately, kind of it just sort of, you ended up, because of everything that happened, you just ended up dwelling on the negative sides of it and not focusing on the good sides of it. I enjoy the game, but to your point, it's not as good as AT at the moment, and it will take a long time to get to that. But we saw this as a great opportunity for the channel and to grow our community. And I'm hoping, I still have hope that now that the kind of initial bugs, teething issues, that kind of stuff are hopefully resolved, and with the warehouse closure at the end of May, hopefully they sort out their warehousing issues, once and for all. That there is, kind of light at the end of the tunnel. I'm really excited to see what this preview for Legions Imperialis is going to be on the 18th, I think it was. Because it's the first time that there's been like a section of those preview images, like which has said Legions Imperialis, which, rather than it being bolted onto a Horus Heresy update or kind of like the sneak peek that it had last year. So, I'm hoping we'll get a new book. We'll get possibly a new way of playing it. We'll get things, we'll get the artillery for Legions for the Astartes. We'll get some more super heavies. Maybe we'll get a new Titan, like to keep the AT people happy as well. Or at least some conversions over from plastic into from resin into plastic. And absolute worst case scenario, we've got some fantastic miniatures and we start playing Epic Armageddon.
Yeah, well, that's it, right?
If that's the worst thing that happens,
that's no bad thing, is it? If there's a pre-existing community loved, it's had kind of the Blood Bowl treatment, right, where the game got discontinued and the community has just been keeping it alive through kind of 3D printers and third party retailers and stuff like that, because it has up until very recently been a dead game. Unlike Blood Bowl, I don't think they've returned to the original roots as much.
Well, they have, but they've kind of gone, I think, further back than people expected them to do. I think a lot of people feel like the golden age of Epic was Armageddon, and they've gone back to what is arguably more kind of the hardcore fans of Epic, which was the second edition Space Marine rules set, which I think there's a lot of the design choices they've chosen have are very faithful to that, and that's kind of fine. It's just
and the inclusions
different
as well.
To what a lot of people thought it was going to be.
The inclusions as well have been solid. Like on paper, it's a solid rule set and a good game. But yeah, when you start playing it,
let's see some tiny Primarchs on the 18th.
Oh god, yeah. Let's
see some tiny Primarchs, and let's see maybe a few Legion specific things. That would be quite nice.
That's like a Legion,
like some character units or something.
Yeah, Legion upgrade pack. You know how they do for Horus Heresy, where it's the heads and shoulders, right? Or the heads and shoulders separately.
Heads and shoulders for Epic. That sounds good.
Yeah. Get your electron microscope and paint the lines on your custom shoulder pads. No, like get custom units maybe, but they're all like bundled into one pack, because there's no way they're going to be releasing just I don't even think they're going to do Legion specific units anyway, but this is just a Johnny Dream hypothetical that may happen.
Of course, what may be justifiable for a preview event could possibly be a new faction. We might see some Mechanicum on the 18th.
Oh yeah, get me that Dark Mech.
Or Demons, something like that.
Both would be.
It's just pie in the sky at this point in time, but
I don't think
normally it's a big announcement, isn't it, for these things?
I feel like we'll see like a late era expansion for Demons, if you know what I mean. Like we'll get like a Siege of Terror or Soul System based campaign book before we see Demons. But,
maybe.
God, I'd love some Demons. That'd be so cool.
Right, Johnny,
Yeah.
we've been talking now for just over an hour on this particular subject. Shall we take a short break and then we'll come back and look at some of these new swooshy jet bikes?
Absolutely.
Swooshy is the new verb that I'm coining.
100%.
Right. See you in a bit. In a bit. We lie. We say see you in a bit. It's like 10 seconds. You'll hear like a...
We're just going to sit... We're now just going to sit here in like silence and stare at each other for like 5 seconds.
I could go for a wee and we just leave the tape rolling.
Okay. Have we cut now?
No.
No? Okay.
No, but we can cut now.
We can cut now. Okay, cool.
Okay, are you freshly drained, Johnny?
I am so freshly drained. Man, that sounds so fucking weird. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Okay, so we haven't done much content like this actually for Legions. I don't think we've done any content like this for Legions Imperialis before, so we thought it was a good place for us to kind of start off and start cutting our teeth on some kind of like Tactica discussions. Now there's a bit more to kind of talk about, and something that like so many people I know have been waiting for have been the jet bikes. The land speeders, all that kind of good fast assault goodness, and they are finally on pre-order. They should be out not long after this podcast drops, which will be great. I have ordered myself some of those already, and yeah, so we thought we'd have a look at the individual units, and we thought we'd have a look at the formation, and kind of give a few thoughts on kind of what we're supposed to be doing with them, and where they kind of fit into your force. So the one in question that we're going to discuss is the Sky Hunter Phalanx, which was first teased in the battle report that Games Workshop released in White Dwarf back, I want to say like October.
Oh yeah,
I think was when they,
if not earlier, right? Yeah,
that's when we released the rather deceptive podcast episode of Legions Imperialis bat reps, and I think a ton of people watched that video on YouTube assuming it was a bat rep when actually it was a podcast talking about a bat rep. But yeah, so this is obviously the fast attack formation of choice at the moment. Your compulsory is 4 Vanguard detachments, and then optional detachments of 2 light armor, 1 air support, and another Vanguard. So the Vanguard detachment slots, the compulsory ones, must be filled with Legion Scimitar Jetbikes, Land Speeder Squadrons, or Javelins Squadron detachments, and they have the Swift Assault special rule, which means that all Scimitars, Jetbikes, Land Speeders, or Javelins in this detachment gain the Outflank special rule. So in the Legion Fast Attack box that you get, that means everything can outflank with the exception of Outriders, which are the only ones which are left out of that particular list. So, these are things which you're going to be bringing on from the flanks to essentially try and harass, I guess, like another alternative to like a drop pod assault where, you deep striking terminators, that kind of stuff, just going to be dropped in the middle of a formation and cause havoc to the rear line defences. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of application for this. I think a lot of people are going to want access to this sort of stuff, especially those legions which are maybe a little bit more static and struggle to get up the board. So, for instance, something like myself, Imperial Fists, I do a lot of first fire to get my legion abilities. We might maybe using bastion formations, that kind of stuff. Having something like the Sky Hunter Phalanx will just help kind of like attack those more hard to reach objectives in your opponent's deployment zone. So, as we said, there is 4 new units which are going to be coming as part of this fast attack. So there is the Outriders, the Jetbikes, the Land Speeders, and the Javelins. And I think I worked out that to get the maximum detachment sizes for a full Sky Hunter Phalanx, you would need 2 boxes of the fast attack squadrons. So that's not bad. It's about £50 for a full detachment.
Yeah, compared to other detachment requirements, monetarily wise, pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, compared to all like the Demi Company, where you need 4 boxes to get like a minimum sized, assault marine detachment. Yeah, it certainly does. But this does mean that for the most part the detachments are reasonably small. You're talking generally sort of sizes of sort of around 6 to 9, depending on the unit, which is obviously smaller than your tacticals that you can get with your tactical marines anyway. So let's start with the Legion Outrider Squadron. So as we said before, these are the ones which you won't be able to outflank these. However, with a movement of 10, you're probably not going to care too much if these are set up in your own deployment zone, because you're going to be marching a nice comfortable 20 inches, as well as charging a nice 20 inches as well. Other than that, they have a pretty standard Legion stat line. In fact, I believe it's identical to a tactical detachment. Save 5+, close assault factor +2, morale 3+, and 1 wound. So kind of very sort of average, I guess, stat line, other than that really quick movement of 10. Obviously, with them being cavalry units, though, rather than infantry, you march double rather than marching triple the movement. I believe that's how it works. He says with confidence. I think it's just infantry that marches triple. So you're getting a 20-inch march instead of a 15-inch march with the tactical legions, but you are charging 20 inches, whereas the tactical legionnaires can only charge 10.
Yeah.
So their charging distance is significantly good. Their weapons, they come with twin-link bolters and twin-link plasma guns. The stat lines for both of those are pretty much identical again to the tactical detachment. The only difference is that the twin-linked bolters come with point defense, which the Legion bolters obviously do not. And the unit as a whole gains the Jinx 6+ rule, which means that they've got that essentially 6-up. They'll always have a 6-up save.
Yeah.
So, sort of similar to an Invuln, So they come with 2 detachments, 2 stands in a detachment for 30 points, and you can increase it by 2 for 30 points or 4 for 60 points. So 90 points for 6 stands of Outriders. Overall, not overly blown away with these from a formation kind of perspective. I'm sure that they've got some advantages, and I think they will be better in certain lists than others. I think that the main thing here, which I can see from a sort of tactic point of view, is utilising that point defence. Because I think that this is a rule which doesn't really get used a lot, but is actually quite versatile and quite can be quite cheeky.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'll just readjust myself. Yeah, because you can use obviously that point defense in the movement phase, or in the combat phase, and you can target a unit which is not your target as well. So I think that would stand to be potentially quite useful, getting up close and harassing. They've obviously got assault, so you can get within 4 inches of a unit, then they're going to be doubling their dice to 2 for each one. I know they're only hitting on 5s, but I think that can obviously, point defense can probably hurt quite a lot of close combat legions and stuff. Try and take the sting out of them a little bit before they charge. You obviously get the benefit if you overwatch as well with point defense, which again makes them a little bit better to react over something else.
Yeah, they're a good goading unit, right?
Yeah, I can see these things
in the face of an enemy block of infantry.
Yeah, I don't think that these they don't have the close assault factor or the numbers to be a unit which is going to be a significant threat in close combat. I could see them as being kind of a force multiplier, and sort of if you've got some people engaged, you throw these guys in to kind of get some additional dice, or even the numbers, or throw the numbers over in your favour.
They're just good harassers, right? Like you can shove them alongside something that's bigger and scarier, and just leave them to, plink away at the sides while, having a main tank battle with a load of, Sicarans and Predators. So
well, with the 10-inch movement as well, these things will keep pace with the Sicarans. So certainly what I found is you can with those fast-moving units, you can find yourself isolated and overstretched, and so having something to kind of support it, as they have a better tactical strength as well than tanks, so they'll be not as good as infantry at taking objectives, but they'll still be pretty decent and a good way of flipping an objective if you need to. So, like I say, I think these are going to be kind of like, these are the only thing in the list which I think are going to be the ones which you sort of think, do I need those? They would be kind of like an augmentation to the formation.
Here's a huge positive of them, though. They are the coolest looking bike in Heresy.
There is that.
That's all I'm going to say. I know people are going to hate me for it, but I think the other ones look like really derpy with their little smoothed fronts. Look like a Star Wars speeder or something.
I really like the scimitars.
Do you?
I do, yeah. I think it's just the fact that, jet bikes were never a thing in 40k unless you were Eldar. But in 30k they had them by the droves. Going back to what's that, 5th edition 40k or whatever. The only people who really had anti-grav skimmers, it was your land speeders, and that was pretty much it back in the day, unless you were what's his face of the Dark Angel Raven Wing, the fancy speeder, Samael, was it?
Yeah, one of them. Azrael, Samael.
Yeah. But okay, so moving on to those anyway, though, the Scimitar Jetbikes, so these are slightly more expensive. These come in at 35 points, but for 35 points you're getting 3 stands rather than 2. The movement is the same, the save is the same, the CAF is the same, morale same, wounds 1. So they are identical to a Tactical Marine as well, just faster, and they all come with Scimitar heavy bolters. So this benefits from a slightly longer range than the twin-linked bolter from 12 up to 12, with 2 dice, hitting on a 5+ with a light and point defense traits.
Point defense.
So
again.
I guess what's that? Sorry.
Point defense again.
Point defense again. Yeah. And you're always getting 2 dice, whereas with the twin-linked bolters you have to be within 4 inches to gain the 2. So again, point defense. Good for harassing, good for taking the sting out of certain things. It's got the skimmer special rule, which I think that, trying to think back through all of the rules which are in the traits, I think you can do pop-up attacks with skimmers if you wanted to, so you can kind of hide them behind something, pop up and shoot over at stuff, and it has the Jinx special rule as well. So for this, you can increase the detachment size by 6, so that would be up to 9 for an additional 75 points. So for 105 points, you are getting 9 bases, which seems significantly better than 90 points for 6 Outriders. Yeah, I mean, they obviously don't have the plasma guns, which have got that light AT, so these scimitars are not going to be good shooting tanks, and they're going to only be very middling against any close assault. I was kind of hoping that these would have a bit of a higher close assault factor than they got given to them, because you think of the Horus Heresy when the Khan does the sally from the it's before they go to the Lionsgate spaceport, and they just go across all of the Death Guard.
Yeah.
And they just cut up these Death Guard with their massive, very falchion, whatever they're called, thingies. So that's, in my mind, that was kind of what I wanted to see. But they don't have that. They're pretty average. Whether we'll see an expansion to the White Scars rules in the future, I don't know. Which maybe make them a bit better in close combat. But again, I think that these are harassment units. These will get the ability to outflank as well. So I think the application here is getting behind things, is threatening objectives, is pulling people's focus away from what is coming up in front of them, maybe even grabbing some objectives which are poorly defended from other people. And with a detachment size of 9, that's a reasonable chunk. So your CAF of +2, albeit pretty average, you will be able to kind of hold your own against most other, equivalent blobs of infantry. Depending on how big a blob it is. Maybe not against a max-sized tertio or whatever, but
against a full-size assault marines, though, yeah, fine.
yeah, absolutely. But I do see a bit more application here with these. I think because of that, that the outflank rule that the phalanx rule is going to give you. Land speeders.
Oh yeah, let's see some big guns.
So again, 30 points. So all of these are kind of coming in at a kind of reasonable point cost, I guess. You get 2 land speeders for your 30 points. They have a 10-inch movement. They have a 4-up save, so a better save than your scimitars. Your CAF, however, though, takes the hit. That goes down to a +1 with a 3+ morale and 1 wound. And these come with plasma cannon and heavy bolter. There is 1 in every 2 land speeders can exchange its plasma cannon and heavy bolter for a nose-mounted heavy flamer and multi-melter for no additional cost. So that means that you have an option. You've got that multi-melter 6-inch range with the anti-tank, -3 AP hitting on a 4+, but only the 1 dice, and the 6-inch nose-mounted heavy flamer with the all-important ignores cover. The only issue I have with that combination is that one's very much anti-tank, one's very much anti-infantry, and neither of them have kind of got, you don't benefit from any point defense there. So, if you're shooting at tanks to get the most of your multi-melter, you are basically losing your flamer, whereas if you're doing the opposite, you can still hurt with the multi-melter, but it's only going to be that AP 0. So yeah, that's kind of okay, I guess. The ignores cover, I think, is going to be very good against units of infantry. Mm-hmm. So I think that really you're going to be, I would personally be flipping the speeders for the multi-melter and the flamer. Probably not 1 in every 2, but like to add in a couple of dice worth of ignoring cover.
Yeah,
I think
because
you can go up to
what's this? Right, that's
yeah, because your alternative is plasma cannon and heavy bolter. Now, that combination against infantry is pretty spicy. I mean, it's light anti-tank with a plasma cannon, 12-inch range, 1 dice, 4+, and then your heavy bolter is 12-inch, 2 dice, 5+ with light point defense. So, with that combination, you could have most people shooting at the infantry, but using the plasma cannons to take out some light tanks or something, where you can use that light 80 bonus. But there's a lot more dice there per model. 3 dice per model, so 6 dice standard, going up to a total of 6 in the detachment for 60 points. So again, what would you rather have? Would you rather have 6 Legion Outriders or 6 land speeders for the same points?
Literally the same points. It's no-brainer, right?
I'm struggling to see kind of like why you would pick one other than the calf, right? The calf is the
an extra
the
one,
bit
though, like
yeah, and you, like I say, you're probably not. You're going to use this more to harass than actually be a significant charge threat, I guess.
I know why you'd pick one more than the other. Financial and stock reason. They've got to have rules for everything because we're not going to be able to get the stock for everything.
Yeah. But this again has the Jinx 6 Plus and the Skimmer special rules, so it can still do those pop-up attacks, and it's still got that, let's call it, in thingies, invulnerable 6 Plus. And these guys can obviously outflank.
Better base slave as well. There's literally no reason. Do you think the Outrider is a print error? Do you reckon that's going to be free in an Outrider attachment? Because
I don't know.
They are meant to be like the sneaky scout bikes, right? Or sneaky wheeled scout bikes.
We've not had any form of FAQ from. Well, we had that really light one right at the beginning, but we've not had a proper FAQ from GW yet. So who knows? Perhaps. But there definitely seems to be a points question here. Because even the ranges are better. You know, your plasma cannon heavy bolter has got 12-12 over 8-10. Same speed. It's still a cavalry unit. You know, it can outflank as part of that particular special rule. So, yeah, I think I would definitely be leaning more towards the land speeders and taking the Outriders. And it kind of reinforces my opinion that the Outriders are kind of like a formation filling role rather than necessarily a, worth taking. It's like an extra activation for relatively cheap. But yeah, no, those land speeders are quite good. But let's have a look at the Javelins. So they're sort of bigger brothers. 33 points for 2, so slightly more. And you can go up to 6 again, same as the land speeders for 33 or 66. So it's 99 points for 6 Javelins. 10-inch movement, 4 up save, +1 calf, 3 plus morale, 1 wounds. So again, exactly the same as the land speeder. These come with a nose-mounted heavy flamer and sponson-mounted las cannon. And any Javelin can exchange its sponson-mounted las cannon for a cyclone missile launcher for +2 points per model. So that would add an additional, so if you max size there, an additional 12 points, which would take you up to 111 points for 6. So your nose-mounted heavy flame is the same as what we said before. 1 dice, 6-inch, 4+, light, arc front, ignores cover, which again doesn't really mesh well for me with the sponson-mounted las cannon. Although you've obviously got the 22-inch range anti-tank. It's not that you can't hurt infantry with it, because you're only losing -1 AP, but 1 dice hitting on the 4. Very long range, well, decent long range versus super short range just is quite a odd combination. And then you've got the cyclone missile launcher, which is 20-inch range, 2 dice, 4+ to hit, front arc, light, ignores cover. So you've got 2 weapons potentially for that extra 12 points, which ignore cover. I really like my missile launchers on the the infantry missile launchers because of their ability to take out things in buildings and ignore that cover save. So having a cyclone missile, I think that for 12 points, I think that is a really good general upgrade for the Javelins. It does make them purely anti-infantry. You don't have any versatility in that, unless you're going to attack them in combat. But having two things which ignore cover, these things are going to come on from the side of the board. The standard kind of operating procedure at the moment with a lot of objectives is you place an objective near a building, you garrison that building. Whereas if these are coming in from the side, they can move 10 inches up towards you. You're then getting 3, assuming you're within 6, you're then getting 3 dice per javelin, hitting on a 4+, ignoring cover, and I think that's gonna sting. I think these used in conjunction with maybe something like a Legion Jetbike squadron, with the Legion Jetbike squadron on like a charge order, and these guys are just on an advance. These guys come in. Oh wait, no, you couldn't. Could you? You couldn't on an advance because they'd shoot after the combat. They would shoot after the combat.
I feel like this unit is very much a Predator battle tank unit, right? I don't think you're either going to go fully into the Cyclone build, or you're going to go fully into the las cannon build. I kind of like the sound of 6 las cannons just appearing on my opponent's flanks, with like massive maneuverability to basically get them in range of whatever you need them to.
And threaten those rear arcs as well for the additional minuses.
Absolutely, yeah. And
Titans, I think, are going to start taking notice when these guys come up behind them, even with like -1s to hit, because that becomes a -2. So your 2+ Titan saves, assuming the shields are down, are going to be more, going to be 50/50s on 4+. And again, Jink and Skimmer as well. So, I think that really, like, they're all kind of certainly all of the skimmers have got good application, I think, here, especially in conjunction with the flanking ability with the what's it called? The outflank. Of course, it's called outflank. The outflank ability.
The outflank ability.
Yeah. It's just the Outriders which form a strange space for me. The only thing I can think is that certain legions are going to get more benefit out of that than others. Raven Guard, for instance, I think that they get like forward deploy on cavalry units as part of their special rules. So having these guys immediately 10 inches up from your deployment zone means that they can advance comfortably another 10 inches. So you cross 20 inches and then you're definitely going to be in range of something at that point. I can see that being a reason why to take Outriders. Of course, you don't have to outflank everything, I don't believe. It's just a may. Yeah, you just gain the outflank rule, so you don't have to outflank them if you don't want. So for the Alpha Legion, for Raven Guard, these guys could legitimately be set up on turn 1, just 10 inches away from your deployment zone, and immediately wreak havoc and immediately be threatening. But on paper, I think it's how you're going to be utilising these detachments more than necessarily their stat line, because their stat lines are relatively underwhelming and pretty average. But I think when you start using them for threatening objectives, for charges in conjunction with other charges, so if you've got like some assault marines in a Land Raider, for instance, they're getting the charge off straight away onto something because they forward deploy and then they charge out, move and charge out. Coupled with a simultaneous attack by another unit, you could really root out some heavily entrenched units, I think, using them in combination with other areas and getting those +1s on the rear arc for against tanks. I think we'll start stacking up, just having that threat there as well. I was trying to think of what other ones I thought would have. Obviously, White Scars, right? This is the thing that White Scars players have been waiting for forever. I think you want to be using this with an aerial. If you were going White Scars, you want to use this in conjunction with an aerial assault formation, I think. And those jinks become 5+ because of the +1 jink rule for White Scars players. So at that point, they're always getting a save of 5+, which is pretty decent. That's not bad. It's not amazing. And also, like I say, going back again to World Eaters, even with a +2 CAF, being able to re-roll one of those dice on a poor dice roll, you are going to be able to still use these in a very aggressive manner to get charges off pretty much as soon as possible at the beginning of the turn. So I think that these maybe more than the drop pod deep striking assault formation is, I think these might be a bit more impactful. I think it might change the Basilisk game a bit.
Yeah.
Because certainly, like, you know, those static artillery blobs are going to be threatened pretty quickly, and it's going to make people think about putting artillery on first fire and that kind of stuff, sacrificing that move, because they're just going to get, it doesn't matter if you've only got a +2 CAF, you're going to see off some basilisks pretty handedly, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
they're going to be interesting addition, I think, to the game. They'll shake it up a little bit. Like you said, hopefully it gets rid of that artillery. I'm not going to say meta, because I don't think it's quite developed yet, but the artillery concerns.
I think you need some of these in your Sons of Horus. Because again, advance orders within 6 inches, re-rolling ones.
You know what I need?
I think
I need lightning fighters. I need the friggin' planes.
Oh, yeah.
Xiphons, sorry, not lightnings.
Xiphons, yeah. I knew what you meant.
I love some Xiphons.
But you think about your point defense, right? All of these point defense rolls here, like being able to re-roll those ones on point defense, I think will start stacking up, especially on the scimitars and on the land speeders with those flamers and heavy bolters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, there's no point defense on the flamers, is there? But on the heavy bolters.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll see. Let's get through the rest of the backlog first, eh?
Yeah. I think
I'm happy to let this one go out of stock and then just pick it up when it comes back in next. I'm not.
Yeah. I feel like I need to paint these guys as white scars when my lot arrives in a couple of weekends.
I think you do too.
I mean, I've already got 3 Xiphons painted up as white scars and a Thunderhawk, so
you got to do it.
I'm not too far away from an aerial assault formation there as well. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be happy. I think a lot of people have been waiting for these for a long time. A lot of people have not been getting into the game specifically waiting for this formation. Whether or not we'll see some all jetbike formations, I'd love to see if that's usable. As you know, not necessarily everything outflanking, but certainly a lot of White Scar players have said that they haven't started playing the game yet because all they want is jetbikes.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you, right? I mean, that's one of the main reasons, one of the big reasons why you didn't start immediately as White Scars. Yeah, it just didn't feel right.
No. But no, it's a good little formation. If have we missed anything? Maybe just drop us a note in the comments below. Have we missed an obvious application for these? I think that they're pretty versatile. Like I say, I wanted them to be a close assault formation, but they are, but more in a close. I feel like they're more close support rather than close assault. But still, like those javelins being used to wheedle out troops in cover, and softening up lines to prepare for a charge, which is probably what they're supposed to be doing, right?
This is a combined arms game, right? You're not going to find as much success, I don't think, skewing a list one way or another. You want to take a good kind of balanced, varied approach to list building, because it's thematic and it looks cool, and also I think it will help you out. Like, the moment these come in, like we said earlier, basilisks and all that mess are going to go, and I think it's just going to balance
threaten
itself
up the air
out.
Defenses as well. Can you get rid of the air defenses, taking care of tarantula batteries?
Exactly, Skyfire
which will just fall over to them.
A good bit more of a thing now. So, with these detachments. So,
and I think that the main thing is that it's a reasonably affordable formation as well. When you compare them against the costs of drop podding in a formation, it's significantly cheaper. I think that's probably the thing which surprised me the most about the game, is that I knew it was going to be more expensive than AT. It's an expensive game.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking kind of not far off 40k value of models.
Mm-hmm. And I think
just to get what you need.
We were kind of expecting to be able to lean on the Solar Auxiliary as a bit of a crutch, but with the restrictions to the reinforcements, I don't think you really can, or even Titans or Knights, right? There's only like a couple of bits you can really realistically bring in most games you play before you hit that limit.
I mean, the good thing is that, like I say, I'm playing my first 3k tomorrow at that size, and at 3k you can bring in a War Master, which is great. I'm taking a Warbringer, so I'm interested to see how that works. Obviously, the Warbringer, you've got the AA guns on the Warbringer as well, which I thought was a nice touch because they've been modelled on the AT model for ages, but completely useless in AT. So nice for them to get a little bit of love. So yeah, really excited to see how it plays at 3k, and yeah, hopefully there is a reason why that is the chosen point scale. It's just taken me a long time to build the force up to get to that that point value.
You might have a come to Jesus moment, right? You play at 3,000 points, you're like, this is it. This is the perfect level.
Hopefully. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, there was nothing more depressing the first time playing the game.
No.
And, or rather the first time costing everything up. It's like, I've spent over 2 weeks painting all of these beautiful infantry models and they are worth 200 points.
Yeah. Like a third of my list.
Christ. Okay, right. But yeah, I'm playing Solar Auxiliary tomorrow, and I know he's going to have some artillery in there. I think he's bringing a War Master, so it's going to be interesting. I won't have played a list like that before, so we'll see how I do. He's definitely more experienced playing than me as well. He's played many more games than I have, so I'm probably about to get schooled. But hopefully it'll be enjoyable regardless.
I think you deserve to be schooled in these games occasionally, Alex. You win too many of them for it to be fair.
What? I haven't played a game of AT since.
He's weak.
I don't know.
Get him.
Have I played this? I think I've played maybe once this year at the beginning of the year. Just because I've been so focused on other stuff, like my Krytos, which I started as well. They've had to take a little bit of a back seat because of certain things happening. But also, I was getting distracted with doing them because I was falling back on my old kind of comfort zone. And I'll be perfectly honest, I wasn't really enjoying painting tiny men. I like using my airbrush and all that kind of stuff. So it was a bit, it wasn't the most fun painting experience as a painter, but I've kind of started to find a bit more joy now that I sort of know what I'm doing. I think that I had a lot of analysis paralysis when I first started painting at this scale. It's like, how do I paint at this scale? What colours do I need to do? And like I was over-egging the pudding, so to speak, with my techniques, and I found a nice middle happy ground, I think, with it looks good, but it's also not overly time-consuming. So stopping myself from getting distracted by more Titan Legions and gonna finish my Imperial Fists.
Hell yeah. I've seen the progress pics. You are a good way for you.
Thank you. Yeah, 6 Sicarans this week as well as 12 Duradios. I never know how to pronounce that. Duradios. When I say Duradios, it's like, turn on Duradio.
It's got like school your mind back to any Black Library Audible thing. The Duradio Dreadnought.
I've got 4 more stands of Assault Marines that I need to paint before tomorrow, so I've got all day tomorrow to do it, so I'm going to hopefully get those done.
Nice.
And
I thought you were going to say tonight, and I was like, oh.
No.
Brother. No.
Not tonight. No. Okay, I think that brings us to a natural conclusion for today's podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully it's not been too rambly, waffly, or moany. It feels like a bit of a moany session today.
I promise it's not always like this if you're a first-time viewer.
No, I mean, we're usually pretty positive about these sort of things. And I think that there's, at the end of the day, like I try to remain optimistic with a lot of this stuff, but there's sometimes you kind of come to things and you just think, you know what, we can't kind of keep sort of some false optimism,
keep
so
smiling.
to speak. Yeah, it's just everything's going to be fine. It's like that sort of meme of the dog with the house that's on fire.
Yeah,
this is fine. sometimes you have to acknowledge that there's problems, and hopefully, like I say, I'm confident that those issues will iron out as the game becomes more developed, more mature, and yeah, it'll turn into something that we've been hoping for a long time. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, guys. Do check out our other content on YouTube if you haven't done already. You may well be listening to this on Audible or one of Spotify or something like that, but do check out our YouTube channel, as we do get we do other things on there like unboxing videos, reviews. We also do things we haven't done for a while, but we've got some lore videos on there discussing Titan Legions, and we've also got some bat reps that we used to do back in the day.
Yeah.
Is still something that we hope to return to at some point, but with so much content, it's always a fighting of what takes priority over what else, and the amount of time one takes over another. So do drop us a like and a subscribe on Facebook, on YouTube. Do join our Discord server. We are now officially well over 1,000 members on our Discord server, which is incredible. It is the place to come and talk Legions Imperialis or Adeptus Titanicus, both of which are still thriving active communities. And if you want news on our events or other people's events, that's usually a great place to drop in or discuss things like loadouts, tactics, rules questions, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, if you want to be that extra special person who gets their name at the end of the videos, then you can also drop us a quid or something in Patreon and show your support that way. But until next time, I think we have to just say once again, thank you for watching, and always remember to go big, go loud, and
go Maximal.